Perhaps no other state is as fiercely independent as Vermont. The Green Mountain State, founded by an unruly bunch of Yankees known as the Green Mountain Boys. No other state is as green in its trees, mountains, and quest for conservation. It was the first state in the Union to abolish slavery, but also the state whose native Indian population would all but disappear. The state whose lakes and land were first explored by the French, but settled by the English. Today, its Great Lake still harbors a monster older than Nessie of Loch Ness. Its land is home to some of the most pristine farmland in the nation. Its woods, the inspiration for the great American poet Robert Frost, who perhaps best described Vermont as the road less traveled. This northern state of stony fields, red-painted barns, and sugar maples is still a place where mad rivers run beneath covered bridges. Vermont shows us an America young, green, and full of promise. From the time the glaciers melted over 10,000 years ago, this vast body of water has defined the land and life around it. Lake Champlain, 120 miles long, and in some places, 12 miles wide. It lies deep in a valley carved by glaciers, with the Adirondack Mountains to the west and the Green Mountains to the east. Today, the skeletal remains of beluga whales are evidence that the lake was once a part of a salty inland arm of the Atlantic Ocean. The lake takes its name from the great French explorer Samuel de Champlain, known as the father of New France. In 1609, he headed south on the lake from Canada and was likely the first European to set foot on Île La Motte. Under these waters lies the Chazy Reef. Scientists claim it's the world's oldest reef, where corals first appeared. Formed 500 million years ago, it was part of an ancient ocean which covered most of the eastern North American continent. Until the 20th century, the only clues to the reef's scientific importance were the odd markings in the beautiful black limestone from the island's quarries. This stone was used in the construction of Radio City Music Hall, the Brooklyn Bridge, and the National Gallery of Art. Early quarry workers never knew that the strange marks on the rock were marine fossils 500 million years old. Given the great age of the lake, it's no surprise that mystery lurks deep within these waters. They are home to an elusive creature known as Champ, America's very own Loch Ness Monster. The first sighting of Champ took place in 1609, when a member of the Champlain expedition noted a 20-foot serpent with a horse-shaped head and body as thick as a keg. There were dozens more Champ sightings before the first appearance of Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster, 50 years after Champ's debut. But perhaps it's not surprising to find strange creatures in places like this. Lake Champlain and Loch Ness are quite similar. Both are deep freshwater lakes created 10,000 years ago. Perfect hideouts for shy monsters. While Champ's existence is yet to be proven, his legend has been a boost for tourism. The next two islands of Lake Champlain, North and South Hero, were once named Two Heroes in honor of Ethan and Ira Allen, brothers who helped to found Vermont. In 1779, Vermont gave these islands in tribute to the Allens and their associates, popularly known as the Green Mountain Boys. How the boys earned their name and became so beloved is also the story of how an early colony became known as Vermont. One of the smallest states in America, Vermont is a land rich in lakes, rivers, and mountains, particularly the Green Mountains, which dominate the state. Early French explorers named the land Vert, meaning green, and Mont, meaning mountain, thus Vermont, or Vermont. Today, Ethan Allen's homestead lies east of Lake Champlain, amid the spectacular Vermont scenery he fought to defend. In the 1700s, colonial boundaries were determined by royal land grants made in England. But the notoriously vague borders led to bitter disputes between New York and New Hampshire, who both claimed the land of Vermont's fertile Champlain Valley. To protect their land from the hated Yorkers, two fiercely independent New Hampshire landowners, Ira and Ethan Allen, formed a militia called the Green Mountain Boys. The boys defied New York's threat to drive Vermont settlers off the fields and into the Green Mountains to the east. Instead, the Green Mountain Boys fought off the Yorkers. But in the end, neither New Hampshire nor New York was able to control the land, and the boys helped establish the Republic of Vermont. Perched on the edge of the lake lies Burlington. No, not the coat factory, but Vermont's largest city, with a population of just 40,000. Despite its small size, it's a cosmopolitan town. In its heyday, as a port city in the steamship era, it attracted some famous visitors, including the author Charles Dickens. Today, the pretty little town of Burlington, as Dickens described it, still captivates visitors. The town center of the Church Street Marketplace is a bustling mix of cafes and shops. And the lake attracts swimmers, and most of all sailors, who love Champlain's gusty winds. Moving inland lie Camel's Hump and Mount Mansfield, the two highest mountains in Vermont. Over the hump and down into the valley, just 3 miles away, is the 45-acre Shelburne Museum, a village of historic buildings that hold the finest collection of Americana in the country. Known as the Smithsonian of New England, the village holds over 100,000 artifacts, from cigar store Indians to a full-sized carousel. One of the town's stranger sights is the 220-foot Ticonderoga, a graceful relic from the golden age of steamship travel. She made her last voyage overland, mooring here in 1955. Today, she offers visitors a glimpse into the elegant life of travel aboard a 19th century steamship. Nearby is Shelburne Farms, an estate of nearly 400 acres with several buildings. One of the most impressive is the breeding barn. The farm was created in 1886 by Lila Vanderbilt and William Seward Webb as a model agricultural estate. Today, it operates as a nonprofit working farm teaching conservation. For over 100 centuries, Native Americans called the Abenaki traveled Vermont's waterways in birch bark canoes. The Winooski, from an Abenaki word meaning wild onion land, is one of Vermont's most important rivers, running 90 miles from the Green Mountains west to Lake Champlain. This was the waterway used by generations of Abenaki to reach their largest settlement, Missisquoi. Here they lived as farmers and hunters until the arrival of Europeans, whose diseases and wars would bring an end to the Abenaki way of life. Today, the area is preserved as a wildlife refuge. And while 2,500 Abenaki still live here around the lake, much of their heritage is lost. Moving east to Richmond. Here, one of the most unusual buildings in the state stands as a testament to Vermont's credo of religious freedom. It's known as the Old Round Church. Although it appears round, it's actually 16-sided. As the story goes, 16 men built the church, and the 17th built the belfry. One theory for its shape is that if the church has no corners, there's nowhere for the devil to hide. In time, the round church became the town hall. Here, annual town meetings, a Vermont tradition, were held for 160 years. At one point, Henry Ford tried to buy the church and move it to Michigan. But the town's answer was a very firm no. Just off the interstate, heading north, is Waterbury, a town that holds a special place in the hearts of ice cream fans. This is the home of Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream Factory, the culmination of an amazing American success story. Back in 1978, after taking a $5 correspondence course in ice cream manufacturing, Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield opened Ben & Jerry's first ice cream store in Burlington. Today, from this building, thousands of gallons of Cherry Garcia and Chunky Monkey make their way to fans across the state and all over the world. For over 30 years, Ben & Jerry's has been known as a phenomenally successful business with one of the best corporate reputations in America. Winter in Vermont is a time of deep snows, and Wilson Bentley, the most famous son of the little town of Jericho, was a man born very much in the right place at the right time. In 1885, Bentley combined the new technology of photography with a microscope to study the snowflake. Snowflake Bentley, as he became known, was the first person to discover that no two snowflakes are alike. Today, much of what we know about snow is based on his research. In the 20th century, snow became a gold mine for the 200-year-old town of Stowe, located on Mount Mansfield. At over 4,000 feet, it's the tallest mountain in Vermont, and the views from the summit are well worth the 4-hour hike to the top. In 1900, the first skier slid down the mountain on skis made from staves from a barrel. But skiing really took off with the creation of the country's first rope tow in 1934. Today, Stowe is one of the best ski mountains in New England. And although these hills aren't alive with the voice of Julie Andrews, they are home to the famous Von Trapp family. Their story of a daring escape from Nazi-occupied Austria inspired the movie The Sound of Music. Here, the family began the country's first cross-country ski center, the 2,400-acre Trapp Family Lodge. The location, overlooking meadows, a valley, and the Green Mountains, has a distinctly Austrian air. Six miles north of Stowe, travelers arrive at a dense, dark forest and a gorge known as Smuggler's Notch. Although this narrow pass had long been known for smuggling, it became the scene of an historic clash between politics and business during the War of 1812. Despite America's ban against trade with Canada, Vermonters defied the law and smuggled beef through the Notch to sell in British Canada, while other Vermonters fought to keep the British troops at bay. For both sides, it must have been tough. In summer, the steep road forges a winding path through the mountains. But in winter, snow makes it impassable, and the Notch is closed. And just like the old Yankee yarn, when a visitor asks the way to the ski area at the Notch, the locals' answer may be, "You can't get there from here." In fall, the sugar maple, Vermont's state tree, turns the hills a fiery red, setting the hills ablaze with color. In spring, when the maples produce their sap, Vermont's sugaring season begins. One glance at the foliage, surely one of nature's most extravagant displays of color, explains why Vermont is invaded by thousands of visitors every fall. In the Green Mountains lies the town of Montgomery, covered bridge capital of Vermont. For many, the bridges invoke nostalgia for a simpler time. But in the 19th century, they were a remarkable engineering achievement that helped facilitate the growth of a young nation. Battered by winter ice and snow, wooden bridges deteriorated quickly, lasting maybe 15 years. But building a cover to protect the massive structural beams could extend the life of a bridge by over 100 years. In the 1870s, 10,000 covered bridges spanned the American landscape. Today, just 750 remain, with over 100 of them in Vermont. 6 covered bridges still stand in Montgomery, most of them still in use. East of the Green Mountains lies the splendid isolation of the Northeast Kingdom. It was named when a senator from Vermont was struck by the area's natural splendor and said, "This is such beautiful country up here that it should be called the Northeast Kingdom." In fall, when the trees are ablaze in every shade of yellow and red, this could be the most beautiful place in America. Here, forested hills open into one-church villages and gorgeous lakes. The largest, Lake Willoughby, is shaped like a Nordic fjord. Formed by glaciers that carved out U-shaped valleys and spectacular cliffs, the lake covers nearly 1,700 acres. The northeastern frontier was settled later than other places in Vermont, and most towns have populations in 3 figures. But the land sustains a way of life that has long since disappeared from most parts of the country. And yet, there are downsides. In the kingdom, backroad travelers are warned to beware of moose, the most dangerous animals in the northern woods. Moose don't just dent cars, they total them. Further south is the quintessential Vermont town of Craftsbury. It was founded in 1788 by Ebenezer Crafts, a Revolutionary War veteran. Like many New England towns, Craftsbury retains its historic town common, a Yankee tradition from colonial times. Back then, a common space in the village center was set aside for grazing sheep and cattle. While the days of free-ranging livestock are gone, the tidy green commons remain. In the crisp light of autumn, the skies in the Northeast Kingdom seem bluer, the fields greener, and the trees exquisite. Each fall, the foliage surrounding the town of Peacham becomes one of the most photographed scenes in New England. Peacham's rolling hills, red barns, and white-steepled church have made it the setting for the films Ethan Frome, Where the Rivers Flow North, and The Spitfire Grill. First settled in 1776, Peacham is still a small town, complete with an old town store built in 1842 that still does a roaring trade. It even offers rooms for rent. Close by is Peacham Cemetery, final resting place of its townsfolk for over 150 years. Here, in the shade of red maples, a gravestone tells the tragic story of 3 generations of a Vermont family. One spring in the 1800s, a grandmother, her daughter, and 8-year-old grandson froze to death as they walked into town. Hard to imagine today, when stretching out on all sides of the village are peaceful open valleys and endless farms. A land best described by the Vermont poet Robert Tristram Coffin. Vermont's a place where barns come painted red as a strong man's heart, where stout carts and stout boys in freckles are highest forms of art. Central Vermont has long been defined by its massive granite quarries, source of the near flawless stone used in gravestones and buildings all over the world. For over a century, granite was the rock on which the fortunes of the nearby city of Barrie rose and fell. Even today, Barrie is an industrial city built by generations of immigrants. Barrie's Rock of Ages quarry runs a quarter-mile long and 450 feet deep, the largest in the world. In the late 1800s, generations of European stonecutters arrived to work in the quarries. In just one decade, granite brought so many people to Barrie that the town's population grew from 2,000 to nearly 7,000. Tons of granite and marble from across the state was carried by rail to Washington, D.C. for construction of the Jefferson Memorial and the Supreme Court. Just outside Barrie is one of the most fantastic displays of granite to be seen. The Hope Cemetery covers 85 acres of monuments that date back to 1895. Many of them carved by master stonecutters early in the 20th century. Just west of Barrie is Vermont's state capital, Montpelier. With a population of just 10,000, it's the smallest in the nation. The State House is known for its gold leaf dome, bearing aloft a statue representing agriculture, a monument to Vermont's farming industry. The area around the State House is known for its varied architectural styles. Ranging from a Greek Revival courthouse to the Gothic design of the Episcopal Church, made of Vermont granite. Just north of the capital is the town of Plainfield, home to the progressive Goddard College. Here, in the 1960s, the school was home to some of the most vocal opposition to the Vietnam War. In time, the school's bohemian reputation turned Plainfield into a mecca for communes and hippies, some of whom are still here. Goddard College is based on the free school concept, what they describe as progressive education for creative minds. Actor William H. Macy and playwright David Mamet are two of Goddard's free-thinking alumni. Mamet, known for his edgy, rapid-fire dialogue, is friends with Macy, who frequently acts in Mamet's films. Moving south to the fertile farmlands of the Mad River Valley is the great Jocelyn Round Barn, one of the very few remaining round barns in Vermont. Based on a Shaker design, the barns epitomize the Shaker rule of craftsmanship. Let it be plain and simple, of good and substantial quality, unembellished by any superfluities which add nothing to its goodness or durability. Round barns are the model of practicality. Hay was stored on the top floor, horses and cows kept on the middle floor, and the ground level was reserved for cows' manure, where it could be easily removed. All in all, a most practical design for a working farmer's barn. This gently sloping land of the Mad River Valley is the heart of Vermont's historic farmland. Here, small towns and covered bridges trace the path of Vermont's earliest farmers. European colonists first settled here in 1790. Then, farms were small, yielding just enough to feed a family. Over time, the farms grew, raising grain, beef, and sheep. It's hard to imagine the perseverance it took to farm here. The valley averages 10 feet of snow a year and has the shortest growing season in the state, less than 4 months. And yet, throughout history, Vermonters have made their living by farming. Today, the major landmark in the small village of Waitsfield is the Great Eddy Bridge, which spans the Mad River, the oldest operating covered bridge in the state. Although just 8% of the people of Waitsfield still work in farming, the landscape is beautifully preserved, especially along Route 100, ranked as one of the 10 most scenic roads in America. The road winds north for 200 miles along the rugged spine of the Green Mountains, across some of the best scenery in the state. And best of all, there are no garish billboards to spoil the view. Road signage has been banned here since 1963. The Green Mountain Range is the most prominent natural feature of Vermont, and the Green Mountain National Forest covers more than 400,000 acres and stretches almost the entire length of the state. Here, the scenery ranges from rugged wilderness to quiet villages. Within this land are thousands of historic sites spanning the history of Vermont, including the early homes of the Abenaki tribe, the Native Americans who settled here 12,000 years ago. The forest also travels through 3 alpine ski areas and 900 miles of trails for cross-country skiing and hiking. Hidden beneath the forest's brilliant fall canopy lies the appropriately named Long Trail, which travels the length of the Green Mountains. Also known as Vermont's Footpath in the Wilderness, it is the oldest long-distance hiking trail in the United States and unfolds for 270 miles from one end of Vermont to the other. The Long Trail was also the inspiration for the famed Appalachian Trail, which links the mountains of the eastern United States from Maine to Georgia. West of the Long Trail lies the perfectly preserved home of Rudyard Kipling. He called it Naulahka. Believe it or not, Kipling wrote the Jungle Book here in Vermont. Although set in India, it was written in these green hills where he and his wife lived happily for 4 years. Naulahka is a Hindu word loosely translated as a jewel beyond price. He described his green shingled farmhouse as 3 miles from anywhere and wonderfully self-contained. And its design, he wrote, is long and narrow, to resemble a ship, appears to be riding on a hillside like a little boat on the flank of a wave. It has been restored by the British Landmark Trust, a foundation that restores historic British properties, not as museums, but as unconventional guest homes. Naulahka, the perfect literary getaway. Here is the Musalamu region of the Green Forest, covering 22,000 acres of wilderness. Perched in the midst of the forest is the Blueberry Hill Inn, a restored lodge originally built by loggers in 1813. 45 miles of trails stretch out from the inn into the forest. But the favorite is the Robert Frost Interpretive Trail. The path is a perfect monument to the poet, surrounded by the woods which inspired so much of his work. As visitors hike or ski the route, they can stop to read his poems posted along the trail. Among them, "Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow." In 1920, 44-year-old Robert Frost moved from New Hampshire to Vermont, as he put it, to seek a better place to farm and especially grow apples. Apparently, he found it. For the next 4 decades, Frost lived mainly in Vermont, writing much of his verse in this log cabin near Ripton, a small town in the heart of the Green Mountain Forest. He ended his Pulitzer Prize-winning poem, New Hampshire, with the ironic words, "At present, I am living in Vermont." Today, Ripton, with a population of just 550, is still a very small town, dominated by Middlebury College, which owns the land and the log cabin where Frost worked. From 1921, when he first spoke at the school, Frost returned every summer for 42 years in support of the Writers Program. Another artist found his voice in southwestern Vermont. This little town of Arlington was, for 14 years, home to the famed American artist Norman Rockwell. After leaving New York City, Rockwell described moving to Vermont as having fallen into utopia. Here in small-town Vermont, Rockwell created some of his best work. Portraits which captured both the heroic and humble in human nature. Nestled in the hills north of Arlington is the charming town of Manchester Center. Many visitors are drawn to Hildene, the home built by Robert Todd Lincoln, son of President Abraham Lincoln. Moving west to the Connecticut River Valley is Woodstock, considered by many as the prettiest small town in America. A large part of the credit for that title is due to the efforts of Lawrence Rockefeller and his wife Mary French. There are no phone or power lines to spoil the village landscape, since Rockefeller saw to it that the lines were buried. For 60 years, the couple worked to preserve the town, due in large part to the work of Mary's grandfather, Frederick Billings. He and his wife built the town's centerpiece, Woodstock Inn and Resort, in 1969. As well as deep pockets, the Rockefellers were known for their commitment to conservation, an interest that first took place in Vermont. Just down the river from Woodstock is one of Vermont's stunning natural wonders, the Quechee Gorge. This dramatic 165-foot high and mile-long gorge was created some 13,000 years ago by glaciers. Today, there are stunning views from the Trestle Bridge, built in 1911, and miles of hiking trails winding past waterfalls. To the south is the historic village of Grafton. Founded in 1763, Grafton thrived through the 1800s with sheep farms and mills. In 1830, its population peaked at nearly 1,500 people and 10,000 sheep. The days of sheep farming are gone, but many of Grafton's historic buildings still stand. This classic four-story white clapboard inn, known as the Old Tavern, was first built in 1801. Today, it's one of the oldest operating inns in America. The Old Tavern that once served stagecoach passengers and their horses still hosts guests today. A major part of the town's renaissance was financed by investment banker Dean Matthey, who once summered in the area. He created the Wyndham Foundation, dedicated to restoring Grafton's historic buildings. But the town is best known for its cheddar cheese business, which began in 1892. Today, the Grafton Village Cheese Company makes one of the finest cheddars in the world. Fast forward from the 1800s to the Roaring '20s and look down at the bucolic home of author Sinclair Lewis and journalist Dorothy Thompson. These 300 acres combine the land of two farms into a property the couple christened Twin Farms. They bought the land in 1928, a year after Lewis's novel Elmer Gantry was published. The couple fell in love with Vermont and invited their literary friends to visit. One described the fall foliage as wildly, insanely cockeyed lovely, like a couple of million drunken rainbows in a brawl. Later, after the couple separated, Dorothy wrote Lewis that Twin Farms was the best expression in life of both of us. Beautiful, hospitable, and unpretentious. Our final destination is the small hill town of Plymouth Notch, the birthplace of Calvin Coolidge. Here in 1923, as Vice President Calvin Coolidge was helping his father harvest the hay, he received word of the death of President Warren Harding. Coolidge was immediately sworn in as the 30th President of the United States by his father, a notary public. Today, the hillside farm is an historic site. The president is buried in the town cemetery with 7 generations of Coolidges. When asked why he wished to be buried in such humble surroundings, he replied, "We draw our presidents from the people. I came from them. I wish to be one of them again." Silent Cal, as Coolidge was known, had a reputation as a man of very few words. But after a devastating flood, he gave comfort to his fellow Vermonters with these simple yet eloquent words. "It was here that I first saw the light of day. Here that I received my bride. Here my dead lie. I love Vermont because of her hills and valleys, her scenery and invigorating climate, but most of all, because of her indomitable people." Aerial Vermont tells the story of these indomitable people who farmed its stony fields, braved snow-covered mountains to settle its valleys, and kept the land intact. Here, conservation of America's earliest landscapes began and prospered. A state begun by the fierce independence of its earliest heroes. whose spirit inspired a president, and a poet whose words best describe Vermont's gift. I chose the road less traveled, and it made all the difference.